Hello, welcome to another video of Code Snippet. So in this video, we are going to see one of the important topic inside Spring Boot, Spring Profiles, right? So first we will learn about profiling, what exactly is profiling. After that, we are also going to go through @profile, which is annotation inside Spring Boot, and it's very important annotation. So let's get started. So this is going to be fun video. So sit back, relax and enjoy the show and let's get started. So here, let's first see the roadmap. So this is a roadmap that we have discussed in the first video of this series, right? So in this roadmap, we have covered this annotation part already. After that, we have also covered dependency injection. After that, we have covered understanding Spring Bean life cycle. We have also covered Spring Bean scopes, right? 4 type of scopes we have already covered, right? Now in this video, we are going to cover this part. So configuring Spring Boot application by using profiles, right? So again, very important topic, right? So let's get started with the agenda. So small agenda but very important, right? Profiling and @profile in Spring, right? So first we will see what exactly is profiling, right? And how we are going to use that profile inside our Spring application. After that we will see @profile annotation, right? Now without wasting any time, let's directly jump into it, right? Let me bring this up over here. So right. So let's say you have an application, right? You have an application running on, let's say, your local machine, right? Now here, this is your local machine, right? And let's say in this application, you are going to connect to your database, let's say SQL DB or any other DB, right? Now that will require some user ID and password, right? So username and password, this application needs in order to connect to this DB, right? Now where do we provide this application? We provide this application in configuration file. What configuration file? We call it as application.properties, right? So if we go inside the code, so this is basically the code, and I have this Spring Boot application over here. And if you see over here, you have application.properties file where you configure all the properties which are needed for your application, right? So let's say this username and password you are going to use to connect to DB, right? And this username and password you can use in your Java classes like this by using @value annotation, right? So this is how you can use that, right? So this is basically the name of the property inside your application.properties file, right? Now let's say you have username and password configured, you are able to connect to DB, right? Now you pick up this application and you deploy it in another environment. By environment, I mean, let's say QA environment, right? Let's say there is a separate environment where all the QAs deploy their code and test their code, right? So let's say I pick up my code and deploy on QA machine, right? Then what is going to happen? If you give same username and password, this username and password belongs to your local DB, right? But now in this case, we want the username and password for QADB, right? So that will be different. So what you need to do, you need to go ahead while deploying to QA environment and you need to update this password and username, right? You'll need to do something like, let's say, dev to QA, right? So you need to change that basically. That is something you need to do, right? Because username and password is different for this DB, right? And again, tomorrow, let's say you are going to go live with this code, right? You are going to deploy this in production so that user can access it, right? That is the end goal basically. So in that case, your DB will be live DB, right? Production DB. In that case, you need different username and password, right? So again, a different configuration over here that you need to configure, right? And this username and password that we see over here is just an example, right? There are multiple properties that you need to configure, right? So basically the username and password is just an example, right? There are so many other configurations which are different in different environments, right? For example, different in dev environment, for example, different in QA environment, for example, different in production environment, right? For example, let's say your URLs, let's say I have a URL of my YouTube channel and that will be different, let's say for my local environment, for my QA environment, right? So that URL I need to configure over here for different environments, right? Port might be different. Let's say one environment port is, let's say, 6379, for other environment, let's say 8082, right? It can be anything, right? So basically you need to configure that, right? After that, let's say different timeouts, connection timeouts. Let's say in dev you want connection timeout, let's say for 1 minute. For QA you want 1 minute, and production you want, let's say, 3 minutes, right? You want to wait more there, right? So basically these values needs to be configured in application.properties, right? After that, your retry count, how many times you want to retry. Let's say dev you want to retry only once. In QA you want to again retry only once, but in production you want to retry 3 times, right? So this retry configuration is something that you can provide in application.properties. So many examples, right? So there are more than this, right? So there can be any configuration that your application needs, right? It can be different in any environment that you use, right? That is basically the problem. So how we really handle this configuration? As I said, we handle it by using application.properties, right? But how to handle different configuration in different environments? We cannot go ahead and change it over here and then deploy it. So each time we cannot update the values over here, right? So how to handle different config in different environments? That is the question. So this is when profiling comes into picture, right? So basically, if I go back over here, then we have application.properties file, right? Now we can create multiple application.properties files like this. Let's say application hyphen profile one dot properties, right? So this profile one basically can be anything. It can be any string, right? Let's say your dev or your QA or your prod, right? It can be anything. So basically you can create multiple files. You can create, let's say, profile 1, profile 2 up to profile n, right? N number of application properties you can create, right? And you can add different properties in different files, right? Let's say here we have one application.property for dev, right? So application hyphen dev dot properties. Let's say we have another one here, let's say for QA, right? We can have that, right? So this application property, whatever property we configure inside it, will be for QA environment, right? Now let's create one more. For example, this is for prod now, right? This is for prod. So let's say whatever configuration is needed in production, we set it over here, right? So that is how you can create multiple application.properties file, right? But how to set profile, right? Before coming to that, what we can do is, let's go through this code quickly over here. So basically, I have a debug connection class, I have username and password, and I'm just printing the values of your username and password, which are coming from your application.properties, right? So username and password, right? So I'm assigning them to this username by using this value annotation, right? And passing this username over here, which belongs to your property inside your application.properties. So when we deploy this application, let me run this application quickly. So application is running now. So as you can see, this db connection init is coming from the post construct of this class, right? And username and password, as you can see, are printed over here on the console, okay, which are coming from application.properties, right? So that is basically how you can use application.properties, right? Now let's come back over here and see how to set profiles. So at application startup, we can tell Spring to pick specific application.properties file, right? So let's create few application.properties files for different environment, right? So what I will do, I'll create a file. Let's say I will say application hyphen dev dot properties, right? Let me create it. We have created it, right? What I will do, copy this and let's say paste it. And while pasting, I'll just rename it to dev to QA, right? And let's again paste it one more time, let's say, and this time we will name it as prod, right? So there we go. So we have three files created: dev, prod, QA. Now what I will do, now in application.properties I have these properties, right? So what I will do, I will paste it over here and I will paste it in this one as well, and I will paste it in this one as well, right? So here I will just say, which one is this? This one is QA. So I will say QA so that we can segregate, right? Here also I will say QA, and in prod one I will say, let's say prod over here. Here I will say prod username and let's say prod password, right? And for dev, we already have dev. So these generic ones, let's just remove this. Let's say username and password simply, right? Now if I rerun this code, let's see what happens. So this is coming basically from your first application.properties, right? So username, password, right? Now let's say I want to deploy this application inside dev and I want dev properties now, right? Now how I'm going to tell my Spring Boot application that, brother, go ahead and pick this dev properties for me, right? Don't pick it from this application.properties, rather pick from this one, right? How we are going to tell our application? So that is when how to set profile comes into picture. At application startup, we can tell Spring to pick specific application.properties file, using this configuration. So this is basically the configuration over here. Let's copy it. And what I will do, I'll go to my first application.properties, which is kind of a parent property that we have. And here I will add this profile. Let me remove this. So this profile active I will assign to, let's say, dev. Now what our application will do, it will seek for application properties with this name. Do we have application -dev.properties over here? Yes, we do have. So let's pick it up from here. Now let's try to bring up our application and let's see what happens. Now do you see over here? Now the username and password are coming from dev username and dev password, which is present inside your application-dev.properties, right? So this is how you can set active profiles. So if you see the stack trace over here, it is saying the following one profile is active, which is dev, right? Because we have set this profile dev to active one, right? So, and this one will come into picture in that case. Now let's say tomorrow I go ahead and I want to deploy this on QA. Then what I can do in this property, what I can do, can change this to QA, right? Now let me run this code. Let's see what happens. Now can you see the username and password is coming from this file now, which is a QA property file, right? So basically, as we have set this profile active to QA, it will try to find if we have anything like application-qa.properties, right? If we have that, it will pick that up, right? And what will happen if we don't have that particular file? So let's delete this and let's see what happens. So delete anyway, and should have been deleted, right? So let's run this code. Let's see what happens now. Did you see what happened here? It is fetching the application from your parent application.properties, right? So this is basically a hierarchy, right? So if we go here, so let's say there is a dev profile active, right? Then it will try to find application.properties for this name, right? If it is not able to find this file itself, what it will do, it will check the properties in application.properties and pick from that one. So basically this is the parent file and these are the child of this parent file, right? Now let's say dev profile is active, right? And we want username from dev profile, right? But let's say this file is there, but inside that file, username and password itself is not there. Then what will happen? So let's go ahead and try to create that scenario. So what I will do, I'll do dev over here, and in here, what I will do, I'll remove this. Now let's run this code again. So here what is happening again, it is picking up from your parent application.properties, right? So this is basically parent child relationship. So basically if we set the active profile to dev, then this will have a priority. If we do not find this file or do not find the property inside this file, then it will come back to parent one and try to find the property here. If it is able to find the property here, then it will pick it up from that one, right? And if it is not able to find over here as well, then let's see what happens, right? That also we will see. Let me remove these from parent as well, and now we will rerun the application. See, your application broke, right? It is saying that DB connection injection failed because dependencies are not there, right? Because it's not able to find the configuration, that's why your application initialization itself is failed. I'll just bring this back and try to run this again. So this time it should work fine, right? See, it's working fine. Now what I'll do, I'll go to dev and put the things back over here. And now if I run this, it should pick it up from dev, right? There we go. So basically now we have seen how we can set profiles, right? We can set it by using this configuration, right? So we have added a configuration over here, right? But let's say I want to deploy it in QA environment or let's say production environment. Then I still need to go over here in parent application and add this configuration, right? I need to still go ahead and make changes over here, let's say prod, right? So that again involves code changes because this application.properties is again inside your application only, right? So basically we need a way to externalize things without making code change inside your application. What we want is we want to provide this active profile from outside the application while running the application, right? So that let's say there is a jar or var with me, I can just put the jar inside your QA environment or prod environment and run that jar and provide this active profile  okay? So basically that is something which we can do So how to configure profile config dynamically. Okay, so that is what we are going to see next. Okay, so basically there are two ways by which we can achieve that. First one is while application startup by using command. Okay, so what we do over here is we start our application by using IntelliJ, right? But what IntelliJ will do at backend, it will try to run command only, right? So basically this is the command by using which you can run your application. Okay, so maven spring boot colon run. So this will run your spring boot application, and -d means after that you are going to set a parameter, right? So spring boot dot run dot profiles equals to prod. So this is basically the command which you can use to run your application in different profiles, right? So basically this command you can use in various environments. So here, in order to demonstrate what I will do, I'll edit this IntelliJ configuration, right? And I will set active profiles as dev over here. So you have an option to set active profiles here, right? So basically this is something which you can use, right? So in turn, IntelliJ will use this particular command only to start the application, right? So I will just say apply and okay. Now, even if I have this prod mentioned over here, now if I run this code, see, it is coming from dev environment, right? Even if I have prod over here, right? Basically it is picking up from this one. So this is how you can externalize your configuration, right? So that you don't have to go over here and change it every time, right? You can externalize like this, and you can use commands to, start your application by using different profiles. So if you see over here, you can see that the one profile active is dev, right? Now what you can do here, you can edit this again, and let's say here we will give prod. Now what we'll do, we will run directly, and let's see what happens now. So it is coming from prod now, right? So you can see over here that one profile active is prod over here, right? So that is how you can externalize configuration basically. So that is basically one way of externalizing your configuration, right? So you can directly go ahead and deploy your application by using this command, and you can change, and you can set profiles like, let's say dev, or let's say QA, or let's say prod, right, over here. And you don't have to go ahead and change every time inside your code. Accordingly it will pick the respective file, right? So that's how you can externalize your configuration. So that is one way how you can externalize your configuration. So this is one way by using this command. Another way is by using pom.xml. So what you can do is you can add profiles in your pom.xml as well, and you can use this command to run it. Maven spring boot run -p, and you can pass your profile over here. Now let's see how we can add this profile inside pom.xml file. So let's go ahead and open our pom.xml file over here. So what I will do over here is, let's see if we have profiles already over here. We should not have, so we don't have it. So what we can do, we can go here and let's add a profile. Let's say profiles, right? And inside that I will add one profile. Let's say this is a profile that I have added, and in that profile we will add a profile ID. And here the ID, let's say it is local environment, right? So basically this is how you can add it, right? So profiles, inside that you will add a particular profile. Inside that you will have ID, let's say local. Inside that you will have a properties, and this particular property we will assign, right? And what is this? Spring boot run profile. So this is same thing that we had in this command, right? Spring boot run profile, right? So same thing we are trying to do over here, right? But by using pom.xml, right? Now let's say we want to add, let's say one more profile over here. You can just copy and paste it over here, and let's say you have production, right? And here we will give prod, so that this application -prod file will be selected, right? Now how do we run this? We run this by using this command, maven spring boot run -p production. That means you need to pick up the profile which have ID production, right? So it will go ahead and pick this, and it will go ahead and pick this one file, right? And it will try to pick this configuration basically, right? So that's how we can configure by using pom.xml, right? Now that's about how we can configure profile dynamically, right? Now that is how we can make use of profiling to set configuration for different environments, right? So that marks the end of profiling, right? We have seen profiling and how we can use profiling. Now let's proceed and see what is @profile annotation, right? So @profile annotation, right? So by using profile annotation, we can tell Spring Boot to create a bean only when particular profile is set. That means if we set, let's say dev profile inside our application.properties, then profile annotation will tell a particular bean should be created or not. Well, let's see how. So let's go inside our code again and let's see these classes. So I have one MySQL class over here. This is again a component. So what I will do, I will add same configuration over there as well. MySQL, I will add same configuration, right? And again, let's try to print that over here. We'll go and paste it here as well. I'll say MySQL connection in it, right? Now I have MySQL, right? Now I want this MySQL bean to be injected inside my application only when I have, let's say, dev profile set in my application, right? What I will do, I'll add a profile over here and I will say, now let's see which profile is set in our application. So here I have prod and let me see if I have anything in configuration over here. So I will remove everything and I will just say okay, right? And what I will do over here to demonstrate, and I will keep it as dev over here. So active profile over here is dev. So let's run this application now. So here, as you can see, our DB connection is initialized and your username and password is dev, right? Now this over here is coming null because we have added it inside a constructor, right? Shouldn't be in constructor, rather it should be in a post construct method, so that after being initialization it will try to print it, right? So what I will do, I will paste this over here and I will say MySQL connection over here, right? Now this MySQL connection we have updated in post construct. So let's rerun this code again and let's see. Now the values are being populated, right? Now this bean is being initialized because we have profile marked as dev and we have active profile as dev only. So if you go ahead and see, following one profile is active, which is dev, right? That is why this is being injected. Now what I will do, I'll go to these properties and let's modify this to prod. And now let's run this code. So now only DB connection is being injected, but SQL connection is not being injected. Why? Because we have added profile annotation and profile set over here is dev, right? So it will try to compare this with your active profile here. It will check if this is same, but it is not same in this case. So what will happen? It won't inject this bean, right? Now let's see one more example over here. So I have, let's say, NoSQL bean, right? And NoSQL bean I want only in prod. So what I will do, I'll do same thing over here. I'll just copy this, right? I'll paste it here, and what I will do, I'll copy this in it as well. I will paste it, let's say, here, and I will update NoSQL connection basically. And here I will add profile. I'll add profile as, let's say, prod. So in production, I want NoSQL connection. In local, I want SQL connection, right? So let's run this code and let's see what happens. So now our active profile is prod, right? So as you can see over here, our active profile is prod, right? So which bean is being injected? So our DB connection is coming from prod and our NoSQL connection is also being injected, which have prod username and prod password, right? Because we have set our profile as prod, right? Now if I go back and switch to dev, right, and run this code again, dev will be injected. For dev, MySQL connection will be injected, right, as we have seen already. Now let's say there is one called QA, right? Now QA is not here, but let's try to run this code and let's see what happens. So as you can see, no bean is injected, neither MySQL nor NoSQL, right? Because we don't have dev or we don't have prod as active, right? We have QA as active. That's why none of these beans are injected and only DB connection is there, and this username and password is coming from your parent application.properties, right? So that is how you can make use of this @profile annotation over here, right? So basically the primary use of profile annotation is to tell your application to inject a bean or not to inject a bean, right? So basically the purpose profile is trying to solve over here is that, let's say in some environment you want certain bean to be injected and in other environment you don't want to inject those beans, right? In that scenario you can make use of @profile annotation, right? One more thing I want to highlight over here is, here in Spring Profiles Active we can give multiple profiles as well by using comma separated values, right? This you can give, right? But this does not really make sense because you cannot deploy same code in multiple environments, right? But which one will be picked in this? So one at the end will be picked. So if I run this code, so as you can see, dev configuration is picked in every one of them, but MySQL and NoSQL both are initialized because we have prod as well. We have both prod and dev, right? So NoSQL bean will see, okay, do we have prod active? Yes, we have, right? In application.properties, we have added prod, so it will be injected. This MySQL connection will see, do we have dev? Yes, we have dev inside our application.properties and it is active. So dev will be injected. But what configuration needs to be picked? That will be picked from the profile which is at the end, right? So at the end we have dev. So it will go to dev and pick this up and assign it to everyone basically, right? Now let's go ahead here, and what I will do now, I will remove this dev and I will put it at front, right? Now what will happen? Let's see. Now as you can see, it is picking up from prod because prod is at end, right? So same thing, again it is picking configuration from prod profile, but as both the profiles are active, both of these beans which we marked as at the red profile are being injected, right? So that is basically how we can make use of profile. And if you go ahead and see over here, then as you can see, there are two profiles are active, dev and prod, right? And same thing you can do by using this command as well while externalizing your configuration. For example, you can go ahead over here and edit configuration. What you can do over here, you can do, let's say prod slash dev, right? So two profiles I have given, and let's run it. So basically now because we had dev at the end in that configuration, we are getting properties from dev, and as dev and prod both are active, both of these beans are being injected, right? And if you go ahead and see over here, you will again see that two profiles are active, prod and dev. Because dev is at end, your properties which are being injected are from dev.properties, right? So from here basically. So that's how basically your at the rate profile annotation works, right? So profile annotation is also completed. So that marks the end of it. So I hope you have fair understanding of profiling in Spring Boot and at the profile annotation now. And if anyone is asking inside interview, you can answer it, and you can make use of profiles inside your Spring Boot projects in order to have different configuration in different environments. So that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, hit the like button. Don't forget to click that red button below and subscribe to my channel. Share this video with your friends so that they can also learn profiling inside Spring Boot and at the profile annotation. That's it for this video. See you in the next video.